The gaming industry right now is absolutely flooded with massive popular games, but what if you just want a killer single-player experience that somehow slipped under everyone's radar? Today, we are diving into 15 of the most criminally underrated single-player games that you seriously need to play right now. Grab your snacks, make sure your coffee cup isn't a mimic, and let's get right into it.
Different story. I didn't learn until later that night was in fact...
Kicking things off, we have Call of Juarez. Honestly, if you can't afford Red Dead Redemption 2, or you just don't have the patience to watch your horse shrink in the cold, this game is your ultimate Wild West fantasy. You play as Silas Greaves, a bounty hunter who is basically the most unreliable narrator in gaming history. He'll literally change the level design in real time while he tells his exaggerated bar stories. Wait, did I say they were Apaches? No, they were bandits. And boom, the enemies magically swap out. The gunplay is incredibly snappy, pure arcadey goodness that makes you feel like a total badass. Sure, the graphics look a bit dated since it dropped over a decade ago, and it's pretty linear, but who cares when you are dueling Billy the Kid? It's a short, sweet, and ridiculously fun ride.
Except for some bitches ahead of me wanting to do me harm. So I had to face them alone.
No one is going to use those nukes. Kumar now has a chance to return.
Speaking of shooting things, let's talk about a game with a title so long it needs its own zip code: Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2. I'll be honest, the stealth mechanics when you are sneaking to your vantage point are pretty bog standard. Hide in a bush, stab a guy, rinse, repeat. But holy moly, the actual sniping! It is borderline therapeutic. You have to calculate wind drift, elevation, and bullet drop from over 1,000 meters away. When you finally pull the trigger and watch the slow-motion camera turn a dictator's head into a cottage cheese explosion, it is glorious. Now if you miss, the AI instantly turns into trigonometry experts and beams you from across the map, which is totally unfair. Still, with all the recent DLCs adding huge new regions, this is the ultimate sneaky beaky sandbox for armchair marksmen. Now, if you want absolutely zero stealth, let me introduce you to Evil West. You are a steampunk cowboy and you punch vampires so hard they explode into bloody confetti. The story is absolute B-movie schlock and the level design is just walking down a shiny corridor until you hit an arena, but honestly, it is so refreshing. It doesn't pretend to be some deep philosophical art piece. You get a gauntlet that harnesses lightning, a boomstick, and you just go to town on Dracula's ugly cousins. The combat loop feels like God of War mixed with Gears of War, and every single hit feels like dropping an anvil on someone's face. It's pure testosterone-fueled junk food, and I absolutely devoured every second of it. Moving from cowboy vampires to pure demonic carnage, we have Prodeus. If Doom and Duke Nukem had a baby that was raised by high-definition lighting engines, this would be it. This boomer shooter perfectly blends old-school pixel art enemies with beautiful modern 3D environments. The gore system is so over-the-top that you'll paint the walls, the floors, and your own screen completely red. Honestly, my only gripe is that sometimes it gets too red and you literally can't see who is shooting you, but that hardly matters when the gunplay is this buttery smooth. Plus, with the Elder Vale expansion throwing grappling hooks and spears into the mix, so we can literally go dethrone God. It's loud, it's fast, and the heavy metal soundtrack will make you want to headbutt a concrete wall in the best way possible. Speaking of going fast, next up is Ghostrunner 2. Have you ever wanted to be a cyberpunk ninja riding a motorcycle through a dystopian hellscape? Of course you have. This game is adrenaline injected straight into your eyeballs. You will die a lot, like 500 times an hour, because everything kills you in one hit. But the instant respawn means you can never blame the game, it's always your fault, which is both brilliant and infuriating. The deflecting mechanics can make you want to throw your controller out the window, but when you finally string together a perfect run of wall running, slicing, and grappling, you feel like a god. The devs have been dropping endless modes and updates too, making sure the pain and the glory never really stops. Before we go into the list, I want to give you my recommendation for some of the best deals in instant gaming right now, especially if you're tight on budget. We knew that instant gaming always give us so many crazy deals for your favorite games, like these titles for example. I mean, can you believe these prices? If you love RPGs, there's no way you never heard of these masterpieces, and to think that you can get them under $10 or even $5, it's an absolute steal. All you have to do is just click my link in the description below, start searching for your favorite games and use the activation code on your chosen platform. By using my link, you're not only saving tons of money, but also helping me to support this channel. Alright then, let's get back into the list. Alright, let's dial back the sweating and ramp up the crude humor with Bulletstorm. This game was so far ahead of its time with the skill shot system. You aren't just shooting enemies, you are sliding into them, kicking them into giant man-eating cacti, or pulling them into explosive barrels with an energy leash. The dialogue is profoundly stupid in the most endearing way possible. Steve Blum voicing Grayson Hunt is a masterclass in creative swearing. I mean, who can forget the legendary Waggleton Pete Tallylicker? The only real downside is that the optional Duke Nukem crossover DLC is incredibly awkwardly stitched together. But honestly, if you just want to turn off your brain, laugh at some middle school toilet humor, and creatively dismantle space pirates, this game is an absolute blast. Now, if you thought kicking enemies was fun, how about sliding into them with a chainsaw attached to your leg? Welcome to Turbo Overkill. Seriously, you have a chainsaw leg. I don't think I need to sell it more than that. You slide into crowds of cyberpunk bad guys and they just turn into red mist like a terrifying meat grinder slip and slide. The movement mechanics are absolutely insane, combining wall running, grappling, and flying cars. As a heads up, the difficulty spikes in the later chapters are totally brutal, and some of the final levels drag on a little bit too long. But considering it recently left early access with a massive 1.0 update, the community is thriving, and the sheer amount of ridiculous weapons makes it an essential playthrough for adrenaline junkies. Shifting gears completely, let's talk about Darksiders Genesis. At first glance, you'd think this is a Diablo clone because of the isometric camera, but nope, it is a pure, unadulterated Darksiders game disguised as an ARPG. You get to play as Strife and War, and their buddy cop dynamic is genuinely hilarious. Strife is easily the most relatable horseman because he just wants to shoot things and crack jokes while War is all edgy and serious. The combat is hack and slash perfection, though I have to admit, doing precision platforming jumps from a top-down perspective is an absolute nightmare that caused me unnecessary rage. Still, solving Zelda-style puzzles and swapping between two apocalyptic brothers on the fly is an incredibly tight, well-crafted experience that fans of the series completely slept on. Let's take a breather and look at something completely story-driven, Beyond Two Souls. This is classic David Cage interactive cinema starring Elliot Page and Willem Dafoe. You play as Jodie and her tethered supernatural entity, Aiden. Honestly, ruining a teenage birthday party with poltergeist powers because they were mean to you is still one of the funniest and most satisfying gaming moments ever. The controls can feel super clunky, like you're steering a tank through a hallway, and the story jumps around the timeline so chaotically it'll make your brain hurt trying to piece it together. But despite the weird pacing, the emotional weight of the story, and the sheer variety of situations you get thrown into, make it an unforgettable, unique trip that deserves way more love than it got at launch. Moving over to hardcore action, we have Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Imagine Sekiro, but drenched in Chinese mythology, where every boss fight is a test of your parrying reflexes. Honestly, the story is mostly just you running around going, "I swore an oath with this guy," while meeting famous Dynasty Warriors characters. But the combat? Unbelievably satisfying. Deflecting a massive screen-clearing attack with a tiny sword ping never gets old. Lu Bu will absolutely filter you. That boss fight is a literal wall of pain. The game had some performance issues at launch, but with all the massive patches, DLCs, and crazy crossover updates with Lies of P and Neo, it's now a finely tuned masterpiece.
Why is Lupin rash at a time like this?
Spanish? Teruea. Yeah, that's where I need to go. Nice.
Next up, we have the 2024 reimagining of Alone in the Dark. Look, this game committed the unforgivable crime in the modern gaming market. It was just a good game instead of a critically acclaimed masterpiece. Starring David Harbour and Jodie Comer, it drips with 1920s Lovecraftian atmosphere. Playing as Edward Carnby, trying to solve cosmic puzzles while searching for a decent cup of coffee is fantastic. The voice acting is stellar, and the jazzy, doom-laden soundtrack sets a brilliant mood. Yes, the combat is undeniably clunky, and there were a few bugs at launch, which sadly led to the developer, Pieces Interactive, shutting down. It's a tragic end, but the game they left behind is a wonderfully spooky, puzzle-heavy tribute to the grandfather of survival horror. Don't let the mixed reviews scare you away.
That you were supposed to die.
I'm the catalyst.
Switching back to high-octane action, let's talk about Astral Chain. This is Platinum Games doing what they do best, absolute chaotic anime nonsense. You play as an interdimensional cop chained to a demonic dog, controlling both characters simultaneously. Once your brain figures out how to maneuver two entities at once, the combat flows like a gorgeous neon-soaked ballet. Tying up enemies with your literal astral chain is endlessly satisfying. Plus, you get to do a bunch of mundane police work, like picking up trash and cleaning up red matter like a glorious interdimensional janitor. The silent protagonist choice is a bit awkward during emotional cutscenes, making you look like a nodding mannequin. But the world-building, killer soundtrack, and unique combat mechanics make it one of the Switch's greatest hidden treasures. Alright, time to talk about the absolute king of cult classic fantasy RPGs, Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Long before the sequel came out, this original masterpiece was letting you climb onto a griffin's back, fly into the sky, and stab it in the face while your AI companions constantly shouting nonsense. The pawn system is genius, the combat feels incredibly weighty, and Bitter Black Isle from the expansion is still one of the best, most terrifying dungeon crawls in gaming history. Sure, the inventory management will give you literal gray hairs, and walking everywhere before you get the tools to fast travel is an exercise in pain. But with Capcom capitalizing on the franchise's hype right now, going back to where the magic started is an absolute must. Alright, let's calm down and get incredibly paranoid with Prey. Not the old one with Portals, the 2017 one where you can't even trust a post-it note. Everything is a mimic. Oh, you want a cup of coffee? Bam! It's an alien ripping your face off. I spent half the game just preemptively whacking every chair and lamp with a wrench like a crazy person. The level design of the Talos 1 space station is an immersive sim masterclass, letting you solve problems using foam dart guns or turning yourself into a coffee mug to roll through a window. The final act pacing is definitely a bit of a slog, and the loading screens can test your patience, but the sheer creativity and the whole I'm January inside jokes make it an absolute sci-fi masterpiece. Finally, we wrap things up with the Crysis Remastered series. Back in the day, but can it run Crysis was the ultimate meme that melted everyone's graphics cards. Now, you can play the whole beautifully remastered trilogy without setting your PC on fire. Throwing on the nanosuit and toggling between maximum armor and maximum speed to terrorize North Korean soldiers and alien squids is still a massive power trip. Sure, the AI still has eyes in the back of their heads and will spot you from a mile away through solid jungle foliage, which is super annoying. But with Crytek officially developing Crysis 4 right now, there is literally no better time to dive back into this legendary series and remind yourself why this franchise was the king of the sandbox shooter.